Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm an American living in France, and I wanted to do a series on medical visits. This is something that's really important for you to find doctors when you first arrive. Definitely find yourself a general practitioner, but then other things like a gynecologist, maybe an obstetrician, dermatologist, dentist, trying to think whatever other doctors that you need to see. It's hard to make those appointments, especially when maybe your language isn't as good as you wish it were, to be able to communicate. And going to the doctor can be scary anyway in your own language, much less trying to communicate in another language. Even if you're just going for checkups, it can be very uncomfortable. So today I wanted to talk about, we're starting off strong with a gynecologist. So my first visit to the gynecologist it went well. I probably waited longer than I should have, just because it's so hard when you're getting settled in a new country. Your priority is not always on yourself. And anyway, I finally went to the gynecologist, and the experience was different than in the US. I did go, the gynecologist I use was at a hospital. You can go to, a smaller practice. I've heard a lot of women go to midwives because you can go have a Pap Smear, you can have other things done going to a midwife. For me, I felt comfortable going to a gynecologist here. And the difference, at the hospital, there was you did have like a secretary station where you go up and give them your medical information. Not really your medical information, but your carte vitale, and they just billed me later. This was sometimes when you go to the doctor, you pay right there. The doctor actually charges you, so you don't usually have like a administration as much. But here, because it was at a hospital, they had kind of like a nurse's station where they took my carte vitale. I waited in a waiting room. Something that I've mentioned in other videos before that's funny, that happens in France, is when you are waiting in a waiting room, it does not matter where you are. When somebody walks in the room, everyone says bonjour. This is something that always throws me off, because I feel like in the US, people kind of avoid eye contact. Everyone kind of stays to themselves when you're at the doctor. You don't know why people are there. They don't need to know why you're there. It's very private. So I do think it's funny that even in the doctor's office, you don't say hello to each other in the street when you're walking past one another. That's weird. But when you're in a doctor's office, you would say bonjour to everyone in the waiting room. So I waited in the waiting room not too long, maybe like 45 minutes. I've waited much longer in the US. I got in with the doctor. We sat at her desk for a minute and we spoke, which that's a little different. In the US, I would usually speak to a nurse, and then they would have me get undressed, and then the doctor would come in, do a breast exam, Pap smear, ask me a few questions, and then go. So this was different. I spoke directly with the doctor from the beginning, and I was thankful that I had looked up a few words. Medical terms in French are sometimes very different from the words that we would use in English. I've tried to get away with pronouncing certain words in French, and a lot of times just medical terms don't translate as well as other French English words. So I would recommend doing a little bit of research. I'll give you a few words that helped me today. The first one is Bilan, which is a checkup. Bilan. It just means you're coming in for a checkup. I was glad to know this word because I didn't have any issues when I was visiting. I was just going for my annual checkup. And when you make the appointment, a lot of times the doctors don't know why you're making the appointment. They might, but I feel like this is a common thing that I end up using. Another word you will need to know is règle or menstruation, which is very similar to menstruation, but règle is the slang term for period. Like for menstruation, but like we would use period, that's not, it's the slang term for menstruation. They use the word règle. So you might be asked about your dernière règle, your last period. Another word to know is seins, breasts. So I know my doctor asked me about if I was doing regular breast exams. So knowing the word seins is helpful. They're also probably going to be able to help you a little bit with translation, and you can always pull your phone out. I definitely recommend taking some notes. If you have anything you're concerned about, definitely take some notes and you can translate those and have them ready. I've always, like, all my doctors have been very accommodating with the language barrier. And the last one that I was very glad to know, because I don't know how we would have translated this if I didn't have my phone on me, but I had looked it up before. Pap smear is Frottis. Frottis. I will write these in the comments below so you can see how they look. The other thing that was a bit different and surprising to me was because there's not another person, like a nurse, giving you something like a piece of paper to drape over yourself and telling you to get undressed. The doctor was in the room with me. We moved from her desk to she had like a little room with like her table, and so to be able to do the exam. And when I went into the room, she told me I could get undressed, and she was standing right there. We continued talking and it was fine, but it's just uncomfortable getting undressed in front of someone. It is nice in the US to not have to get undressed in front of someone, just to be able to get undressed privately. In France, there is no, you are just naked. Once you get undressed, you are just naked in front of the doctor. There's no blanket, there's no little sheet of paper, and there is comfort in that. I know we make fun of it as women, like we joke about that, but it is uncomfortable just standing there naked in front of somebody. And so that's something that I've heard other people talk about in France, and on TikTok, in reading blogs and stuff. So just something to know, something to be aware of. I already knew what to expect. And I think when you go into something like an uncomfortable situation and you already know what to expect, it makes it a little bit less uncomfortable. So anyway, as far as price, I cannot remember exactly what I paid. I had, French healthcare, but no mutuelle, which is like, it's like additional insurance. Sometimes you work, certain jobs will offer a mutuelle, which is like just additional health care. Usually it covers like maybe the rest of the bill or a good portion of the rest of the bill. I did not have mutuelle at the time, and so I think my total was like around 35 euro for the exam. Like I said, it was just a checkup, so there was nothing special about the exam. I didn't have any problems or anything, but that was it was a fairly straightforward process. So let me know if you have any specific questions, and I will continue this series with some other medical visits and just give you some more vocabulary. So thank you for following along.